Hi, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us today. I have a friend on today who I work with quite often that I think you'll enjoy hearing from, but I want to remind you we're just a few days before the election, as you know. It'll soon all be over, but if you have not voted yet, I would encourage you to go to ivoterguide.com and to vote for policies. It's so easy to vote for or against somebody, or I don't like this person, I don't like that person, I don't like these ads. I encourage you, where as best as possible, vote based on their policies. iVoter Guide will help you with that, and encourage you to vote, have your family vote, your friends vote. And iVoter Guide also works outside of Indiana, so if you have friends or family in another state, visit iVoter Guide or encourage them to do so and enter their address. It'll show their ballot, their candidates, spend a few minutes there. But again, I mentioned with us today is Martin Strother. Many of you know Martin, but Martin works for the Indiana Family Institute. So Martin, it's great to have you with us. You work with our friends at IFI. Tell us about your position there real quick.
Yeah, Micah, first, I just want to give a big thanks to you guys at Indiana Family Association. What you're doing to educate Hoosiers and encourage us to all get involved in the public square really dovetails nicely with my position because in addition to helping write and pass bills at the State House, IFI also has 4 key initiatives, including mine, and mine is the Education Initiative. Yeah, sure. Graduated in 2002 with elementary education degree from Anderson University, and then taught and coached down in Tennessee for a couple of years before coming back up here where I was a public school teacher and a high school baseball coach for about 17 years. And so have a little bit of background with what's going on in public education and really enjoy, sharing with people how they can make a difference.
Well, as people go to the booth on Tuesday or they vote early over the weekend, they will see anywhere from 4 to 6 to 8 pages on their ballot, depending on the type of machine they have in their county. And at the end of the ballot are races that are often overlooked. So a lot of times people don't vote for them because they don't know, but they're critically important to the work that American Family Association does and Indiana Family Institute that Ryan and I do, and you down at the State House when we're fighting for good education policies. But at the end of the ballot is the school board races. And we had hoped the iVoter Guide could review those. They didn't have the money. It's a massive task. There's hundreds upon hundreds of school board races in every county and community and district in Indiana. But maybe tell our audience, let's start here, Martin. What does a school board member do? Let's start there.
Sure. And real quick to go back, I was involved with iVoter Guide. I know in Indiana they did look at about 5 or 6 school board races up in the Chicagoland area. So for those of you that are out there living in the region, there are a few of those covered because I did a little bit of work with that as well. But yeah, let's get into the role of the school board because I think a lot of times there's a lot of lack of information out there on school boards. They really are a 30,000 foot view over a school district. But I always tell folks it's still super critical for us to understand what's going on, right? They're the only elected officials in the district, and really they're the only way that we can directly have accountability to the voters. So we don't want to overlook that at all. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Keep going.
Okay, great. So they have 3 official roles. They've got writing policy, they've got overseeing the superintendent and the local attorney, and then also overseeing the budget. But there's also some other things behind the scenes that they do as far as having a bully pulpit and working behind the scenes with grassroots groups. That's something else that we didn't really get into yet, but I try to help grassroots groups that are local, that are primarily made up of parents that are defending parental rights and making sure that we've got transparency and good communication coming from the school district. And so when we are able to get conservatives on the school board, they can also help other conservative school board members get elected.
Okay, Martin, you mentioned parents groups. And a few years ago, there was a lot of talk about parental rights, girls in sports, boys in girls' bathrooms, DEI, CRT, things like that. Are those issues still a driving force in these school board elections?
Yeah, I think they are. I think a lot of times our more liberal opponents will try to say, well, that's not happening, right? And one thing I really appreciate is the support that Attorney General Todd Rokita has given us. He has even put on a portal called the Eyes on Education portal, where parents, where students, even sometimes teachers will be, posting things that they feel like fellow staff members are using in the classroom that of course aren't called critical race theory, but it's all those other elements, that all have that kind of that Marxist flair of keeping secrets from parents or trying to be divisive or trying to create some type of white guilt among students. So I do think people are shocked, especially in some of these suburbs that tend to vote more red, when they find out that some of these initiatives, DEI, like you mentioned, are actually here in Indiana, because they think, oh, that's out in California, that's not really happening, and the teacher union has that they promised us that's not happening here in Indiana, but that's simply not true. And so a lot of times, what these parent or grassroots groups that we're able to put together, they are able to really research and find out what's truly going on in their local schools, and then somehow expose that to the community. But then we try really hard to still maintain relationships with the current superintendent, with the people that are currently on the school board, and not burn a lot of bridges, but just really try to figure out where some of these, what we feel are weaknesses, are occurring, and then trying to make sure that we're educated about them, that we're taking action, and that we're really trying to get great people on school boards. And like we mentioned, school boards are really the only direct way that voters can have an impact on their school corporation, but they're not the only way. I always encourage folks to make sure that they're volunteering, and that the local church is actually viewing the public school, as a mission field where they can be supporting great teachers and supporting great administrators. And it's not always, doesn't always have to be super contentious if we can avoid that.
Now, I know IFI and AFA were 501c3s we can't endorse, even though these are nonpartisan races. We really shouldn't. But for me, I've seen, as I looked at some of these school boards, it's super hard to get information on some of these candidates. But sometimes there is kind of a theme, and sometimes we see certain endorsements of certain candidates, like from the teachers' unions, or things that are said that might be a telltale sign that either your property taxes are going up with more referendums, or maybe they won't protect girls or keeping men out of girls' bathrooms, or whatever the issue may be. They may be a little more woke. Have you seen some of that, or are there things that maybe you could give tips for people to look for as they research these candidates?
Sure, yeah. I think a lot of school board candidates that we've been supporting, and then also maybe some current school board members that are already on the board, and we're able to, work to support and to help write great policy at the school district level. They typically have some pillars, or some of their campaign stances. They want transparency, whether that's through, like you said, referendum creations or the curriculum, the budget. They oftentimes mention academic excellence, which sounds crazy that in today's education world that wouldn't be number one, right? But sometimes you have people from the left saying we want to make sure we're educating the whole child, and we want to make sure that this school isn't just a school, but it's also a social center, essentially, right? And that we are, promoting social emotional learning, and we're trying to work towards better mental health for students. All these things that sound great, when you put them on paper, right? But in practice, a lot of times it can create, a wedge between the student and the parent, a lack of, like you mentioned earlier, parental rights. But yeah, academic excellence is oftentimes the focus of our candidates, because they don't want to just be schools that are promoting social and political agendas, but they want to kind of go back to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and the things that we grew up in public schools having no issue with, right? Another one is we do have candidates that will call out parental rights, that they want parents to be aware of what their kids are learning in the classroom, any conversation or any material about sensitive topics, whether it's gender, religion, politics. They think the parents deserve the right, or the guardians deserve the right to know that. And as well as with transparency, fiscal responsibility. And like you mentioned earlier, sometimes on the negative side, we see endorsements from the teachers union, and it might say something like, the teachers support this candidate. Well, I've got examples just from this election cycle where it wasn't really all of the teachers, it was just the teachers union, right? So that's not necessarily true advertising on some of those signs that you see. It should really say teachers union endorsed, which I think is probably a more clear picture of what's going on. But also, when you take a look at it, we've got a couple of local central Indiana school districts where it says teacher union endorsed, and you come to find out there was actually 4 people on a board for the local teachers union, and at least 3 of the 4 selected these candidates as the most pro public school. So there wasn't even a vote taken by the local teachers union. So it's not even really fair to say everyone in the teachers union believes that. And as a former public teacher, I can promise you we're not a monolith. We come from different religious backgrounds, different political backgrounds. So sometimes it's very frustrating for me to hear their teacher endorsed. What does that actually mean? And is that actually honest, right?
One of the things I see from time to time, and like in my Noblesville race where I live, there's 3 candidates running that are, I would say, in that teacher union endorsed category versus 3 conservatives. And one of my concerns, and I'm speaking loosely, this is always the case, but I want, as a voter myself and as a taxpayer, property owner, parent, I don't necessarily want my school board just to be a rubber stamp for whatever the internal people in the school or the administration want. It's a check and balance. It's really the only check and balance we have between the government school and the voter and the taxpayer is the school board to say, hey, let's just not rubber stamp everything the school wants. Let's not spend everything the school wants. Let's not raise taxes. So I don't know where you go with that. That's just kind of my thought. You want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things that we see, and this happens not just on school boards, but on other boards as well, that, there's some conversation and some debate that goes on behind the scenes, and they come out and they all vote lockstep, right? And that's one thing where a lot of our candidates are saying, we're not going to do that. We're an elected position. We are beholden to the taxpayers, the constituents that voted us in, and we think that discussion should happen publicly, right? And that we need everyone to hear kind of the back and forth. And it's okay if we don't all vote 5-0, or some school districts have 7 on their board, 7-0, right? But in addition to that, you mentioned earlier, when Mitch Daniels was governor, he put in place 1% property tax cap, which sounds great, right? But as we've seen increased inflation in home values and assessed values, that 1% isn't always affordable anymore. And then on top of that, the schools, like you mentioned, Noblesville, are currently under 2 referendums, thinking about another one when one expires. And so they're having to turn to referendums because, according to the law change, they can't just go through all these, massive football stadium construction projects and so forth without going to the taxpayers, which is a good thing. The problem here, though, is, 9 times out of 10, people don't want to be viewed as not supporting teachers or not supporting school resource officers or mental health or whatever the case might be. And so 9 times out of 10, these referendums are passing, right? So my question for candidates would be, are you going to, as you mentioned, rubber stamp these referendums? Are you going to work really hard to figure out maybe what worked in the last one, what didn't work? Are you going to try to be at least mindful? You mentioned checks and balances, at least mindful of the taxpayer who has got to go not only 1% of an increasing property value, but now referendum or 2 on top of that, right? And for folks on a fixed income, it's a real problem because it's like, when does the spending stop? Like when are the schools going, at least on the administrative level, start to cut back, and most of our candidates don't want to cut teacher pay, that they don't feel like that's actually a great idea. The latest study I showed, something like 2,000 teachers statewide were short. We've got a teacher shortage, in a lot of schools, especially in nice areas. They want to be competitive with teacher pay. So I'm yet to come across a candidate, I've heard from 30 or 40 around the state this cycle that are telling me, no, we're going to make sure that we don't have any more referendums. We want teachers to make less money, right? That's just simply a false narrative. Yeah.
Well, and you've seen the charts. You're a policy guy too. The growth in school expansion has not been more teachers and not been spending on more pay. It's been administrators, outside consultants, building construction, things that really are peripheral to what you did as a teacher in the classroom. So I think people shouldn't be afraid to say, if they're going to vote for someone who's going to be a check and balance, that's not a vote against the school. That's a vote for fiscal responsibility.
That's right. And I also like to mention that the folks that are going to be crafting this referendum, which are the school board folks, the CFO of the district, the superintendent, they're creating a package that only can be a yes or no vote by the taxpayer. So do you want, a massive bloated referendum that might even get voted no, and now there's no increase in funding? Or do you want folks that are going to have the wisdom and discernment to look and say, okay, this third party group that's coming in that we're paying a lot of money to, maybe we need to hold off on that for now. Building that new football stadium is a great idea, but maybe we need to hold off for now until the economy rebounds or whatever the case might be. So I just think it's really important. We often say at IFI that people are policy, that we can get the right people in place that we know are trustworthy, and they're going to listen to the taxpayers as well as the teachers union, the administration, construction companies, and so on, right?
Well, Martin, I want to thank you for joining us today. We had Martin Strother with the Indiana Family Institute. I'm going to leave you with one policy question before we go. Looking ahead,
Sure.
The election's just a couple days away, and you and I are going to be very glad when it's over. But then we turn around, we're running right to the state legislature pretty quickly. And there was a bill that you and I and Ryan McCann worked on very closely. Senator Gary Byrne authored it, passed the Senate. I think the three of us testified for it. And what it simply said was that a school board must approve sex education materials. And if the school board hasn't voted on it, the school can't bring in something the school board doesn't know about. My thought behind that bill was pretty simple. School board members are elected. They don't want to be shopping at their local Kroger and have some parent come up to them and say, hey, why did this film show up? Or why is this curriculum about gay sex in my school and the school board not know about it? What in the world? It was an accountability bill. And even the Indiana School Board Association supported the bill, and it passed. Unfortunately, the House didn't take it up. I think it's going to be filed again this year. Do you have anything to say on that? You think that's a good bill? I mean, that's another level of accountability of parental rights,
It's transparency.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't understand the point of view from people that are against it. I'm sure they've got their talking points, right? But for me, that sounds like a slam dunk because we want transparency, we want accountability. This is, after all, part of your local government. And I think that's where a lot of folks, and I'm going to be honest, I'm sure a lot in your audience, their kids go to private school, they pull their kids out, they homeschool, or maybe they're older and they don't have kids in school anymore. They tend to check out. It's pretty simple to say these public schools, even in Indiana, are on fire and we just want to let them burn down. And my thought on that is, please don't view it that way. I want you to view it as a local Nehemiah type, wall builder type. No, this is the government that's right here in my backyard. And 86% of Hoosier students still go to public schools. So even if I don't agree with everything going on there, how can I influence that for good? How can I find great, if I don't want to run for school board, how can I find a great Christian school board candidate that I can support, right? How can I in that's right. And how can I in my church also, teach young people that this is a right mission field for adults when they get to be adults, right? And so go into teaching, go into school administration, be a coach. Like when we leave these and vacate these spaces, we know what then comes in, right? And it's not good. And so I think we've got to be good stewards of our local government, and your local school there is no more local government than right there. So I just really think like as you guys advocate for, that we've got to stay informed, we've got to stay engaged. If that means starting a parent group, you're welcome to contact Micah. He can get you in touch with me. That's what I do around the state, so that we at least have some type of a pushback for good, and take more of a biblical approach than we've been often taking.
Well, thank you for all you do with the Indiana Family Institute. Thank you for all you're doing for families, for parents, and for better education in Indiana. Well, we've been joined by Martin Strother today with IFI. Appreciate you joining us. Please remember to vote on Tuesday. Take someone to vote with you or encourage someone to vote. Encourage them to visit ivoterguide.com. and learn more about your candidates. And don't forget to vote for the school board candidates as best you can with what
That's
you
right.
know.
And they are nonpartisan, right? So you press straight ticket, they're still going to take you to that last page. And we want you to be prepared as you get to that last page to not get in the situation of, I don't know any of these names. Or, hey, Joe is Kevin's uncle. I think I know him in a small town. We want to make sure that we're getting the right people of policy, and folks that are aware of what's going on, and they're gonna fight back for us on the school board.
That's a great point. Make sure you go through all your ballots. Straight ticket will not automatically vote on school boards because they're nonpartisan. So you have to go look at those if you happen to vote straight ticket. I don't do that very often. I look through everyone myself because I want to see who I'm voting for rather than pressing one button. Make sure you go to their end of your ballot and vote for school board members. Martin, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, Micah,
Thank
thanks
you
for all you're
joining
doing
us
to fight for us.
Well, you
So
too.
grateful.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm Micah Clark with the American Family Association. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Also remember, pray for these elections. You can vote and you can also pray. We need to pray for our legislators. God tells us to pray for those in authority over us. Pray for his mercy and blessings this coming Tuesday on the election, and that our country will prosper and see his blessing by the people that we elect, and then we continue to pray for them after they're elected. So again, I'm Micah Clark. Thank you for joining us. Have a wonderful weekend.